Hello. Hi, pretty people. I'm hopping on super late today, like a day and 5 hours late today for the podcast because I was traveling. I was in Baltimore, Maryland for about a week. But thankfully, I'm hopping back on track. I'm looking a little crazy. I literally got back from the airport literally like 30 minutes ago. So, with that being said, we're just going to jump right into today's episode of Run It Back, which is my music industry podcast. We talk about new music, industry updates, artist accomplishments, a whole bunch of other stuff, as well as just whatever I feel like talking about. But yeah, I'll give a little rundown on myself as I usually do. I'm an artist manager, junior talent agent. I work at We the Future in the music department where I do a lot of education for independent artists. I'm also a musician myself. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. I'm going to try to make today's episode pretty short. We don't have a lot too much to get through. So yeah, some new music. Of course, I have to plug Creep Away. Flair, one of my artists, released a single on the 22nd called Creep Away. This, I've heard it over and over and over again. It never gets old. Very much like classic Flair. If you haven't heard him before, or if you want to start learning more about him and the sound that he has, this is a great place to start. It's honest, and it's completely engaging. Shout out to Interspace and PJ for giving us a great mix on it. And it's short and sweet. It's about 2.5 minutes. I won't say more than that. Great song. Got some fun visuals and stuff coming out for it soon. So definitely just tap in and stay tuned in for that. The next song that we have is called Boarding Pass by Tony Fresco. The mix quality on this is great, in my opinion. There's a very catchy hook. It's a little bit repetitive in terms of the melody. Personally, I would change that up just so you can increase the variation and engagement factor within the song. But I can definitely hear that in reality TV in terms of sync opportunities. So definitely start looking into that. And as per usual, all of the song links will be in the link in my bio under the, this is going to be episode 24 news links. It'll be in the description for you guys on YouTube. And then everyone who I talk about is going to be like added or tagged in the description below for those of you on Instagram. The next song that we have is called Stranger by Sludge Vaughn featuring Richcraft Rambo. And it seems like some folks called DJ Films Productions also helped put this visual together. There is some quality issues within the video. The editing is very fitting. It's just it could be a stylistic choice. It could be a matter of like budget and what you're able to afford in terms of equipment and stuff. But it's just something that I noticed. But in terms of the editing, like you guys did a great job. You as an artist, Sludge Vaughn, have a great way of changing up your flow. This was a very fun song, very engaging. But heads up, the links on your YouTube that are in your description and your about section do not work. So when you're an artist and you're making sure that you're cross-collateralizing all of your social media and feeding everything into each other, you need to double, triple check. You need to have check for you to make sure that these links are working, because the idea is there, but if it doesn't go anywhere, if I go to a 404 page not found after I click on your link, then I'm going to have to go in and somehow try to find you, which most people aren't going to do. And instead of converting that one person who could have clicked and found you, now they're gone. They're not a follower. They can just add you to a playlist and possibly listen to every once in a while. And we want more than that. All right. The next song that we have is called Vida Nortona. Nortona? I want to say it correctly. But this is by Tori Verez. This is a fellow Full Sail alumni. Shout out. This is a very light and airy song. It's bilingual. She's speaking, I believe, in Portuguese as well as English. Great hooks and bridges. It's a little bit not monotone in terms of your voice, but overall, it was an engaging song. You had a good mix on there. I enjoyed it. And the final song that we have today is called Rainy Sky by Loud Villa. This is another one that has great, like just sounding mix quality. It's a very groovy song. It's mid-tempo. There's good variation in the production, but you're lacking a little bit on the melody. So I would just try to balance that out just to increase how engaging the song is. But overall, I enjoyed listening to it. Definitely a very chill, like relaxing song, something that you could hear as I just did, like going home from the airport, just checking some new stuff out, wanting to relax and not be hype type thing. But this had a great chorus in it, and overall, I enjoyed the song. So once again, if you guys want to take a listen to anything, go ahead into the link in my bio. Like I said, it'll be episode 24 news links. Go in, you'll be able to find everything there. If you want to follow them, they will be tagged down below. For you guys on YouTube, just go to the description, the very last link that has a document with everything on it. Okay, next up, we're going to go into the My Like section. This is just a section full of stuff that doesn't necessarily fit into my other categories, but I want to talk about it. So the first story that we have, the Smithsonian National Museum of African American History and Culture is celebrating hip-hop music with an inaugural block party. The block party will mark the first anniversary of the Smithsonian's anthology of hip-hop and rap. I think this is super cool. If you have the ability to attend this, I definitely would. I think it's going to be a great time. Definitely good energy, fun stuff. The next story is, are the major record companies trying to pressure music streaming services to pay DIY artists a lower royalty rate than the folks who are already than those received by established artists? According to Believe boss Dennis Ladgallery, I'm definitely saying that incorrectly, but he says that yes, they absolutely are. He's claiming that certain majors are pushing for this change because they've been consistently losing market share for the past 5 years due to the volume of releases coming out of DIY platforms. So to break this down a little bit, we'll read some of the sentences and break them down, right? So are the major record companies trying to pressure music streaming services to pay DIY artists lower royalty rates than those received by established superstars? Makes sense. Are majors, which are essentially the big three, trying to get a higher royalty rate compared to regular folks like you and I who are going to go through DIY aggregators and distributors like DistroKid, TuneCore, etc. Believe boss Dennis, not going to butcher his last name again, is saying that they are. They're saying that certain majors are pushing for this change because they've been consistently losing market share for the past 5 years. So what we're talking about here is the sheer volume of music that comes from everyday DIY artists compared to the volume that's coming out of majors. When you're an everyday person and you just want to release stuff, the best way to put this is that 40,000 songs come out on Spotify every single day, and that's only on Spotify. There are plenty of people who put stuff only on SoundCloud, only on YouTube, only on AudioMac, whatever you want to say. But that is a lot of music coming out every day that majors simply cannot compete with their roster and with their turnaround in terms of how often they release music, right? So they want to try to level this playing field because they know in totality, in terms of the market, more money is most likely going to DIY artists in totality because it's broken up into a lot of different pieces, right? So if $100 is broken up 100 ways, and 99% of, or 99 of those people are DIY artists, and one of those people is someone who's signed to a major. In actuality, even though it's cut the same, because more of the market share is with the independent artists, they're getting more money. Now, in reality, we know that more money is not going into the pockets of DIY artists. Megan Thee Stallion definitely is raking in more cash than some female rapper who doesn't have the type of stature that she does. But there's so many more female rappers without the stature that Megan does than Megan. So I'm trying to communicate this in a way that is understandable, but I hope that it's understood. But yeah, that, like I said, all has to do with market share and just how money is broken up. Okay, the next story that we have, during a gem-filled barbershop sit-down with Math Hoffa, Method Man shared some more words of advice for artists who are considering signing with their artists, because I always feel like you can't sign to somebody who is also still trying to be an artist, he said. It's hard. They can't give you the time or attention that you probably need and deserve unless you are your own machine. I thought this was a really interesting just conversation because there are plenty of artists who are starting indie labels and trying to sign people or start collectives and things like this. And I want to say on my part, like, I don't think that that's a bad thing, but I think that what he's saying is very important. If somebody is chasing their own dreams that are similar to yours, if not the same, it's hard for them to allocate certain resources to you, that they're really a testament to focus, right? Where is that focus at? And I think it's an interesting conversation, and that's definitely not to say that any indie artist who are starting an indie label is going to be bad at that, or not be able to give their artists what they need. But I definitely think it is something to give into consideration. And like I said, it's more about focus than anything else. The next story that we have, a new guide aims to provide musicians and bands practical step-by-step solutions to help them reduce their carbon footprints and the environmental impact of gigging and touring. Launched in Melbourne on Monday night, this past Monday, Green Music Australia's Sound Country, a green artist guide, is a comprehensive resources for musicians at any stage of their career, from garage bands to commercially successful artists embarking on stadium tours. I think this is awesome. There is, like most industries, there's a lot of not good stuff that happens to the planet because of the music industry. They're really honing in on touring, because when you think about it, you have to use a lot of gas. Then you also factor in the manufacturing costs and the things that go into creating a tour. It's not very nice for the environment. I believe, I'm trying to think of who did this, but it was really cool because power is another thing that you have to, it takes a lot of power to put on a tour, or just even one show generally. So I forget who was doing this. If you remember who it is, please put it in the comments. But I want to say it's something like Radiohead or Coldplay. I believe it may have been Coldplay, but they had this this dance floor that powered their entire show. So when someone would dance on the floor or would hop on the floor, it would generate energy that would then go into electricity and funnel into actually keeping everything going, which I think is really cool and even more interactive. But just finding these new and interesting ways to reduce the carbon footprint that the industry has, I think is important. And I think like taking it in that creative route is really cool, because there's so many possibilities of how we can do this cool thing and make live music even better than it is, right? Next story. The founders of Independent Venue Week have announced a new initiative called Independent Venue Community. It will encourage grassroots music venues around the UK to offer more daytime programs of music-based activities in order to attract new audiences. I think this is really cool. This is based, and I do like put in a lot of international stories here because it is important to stay up to date on. But I think this is cool, just generally having these conversations around how can we maximize not only but the use of the spaces that we have, right? So what other ways can we make a nightclub profitable than just being a nightclub, or just being somewhere that people come to get drunk, sweaty, and dance? You know what I mean? There's definitely more opportunity in these spaces to do just different things. What exactly that is, I don't know. This is going to depend on the capability of each venue, what the brand is, all of these different things. But starting the conversation, I think, is always a good thing. And if I was a venue owner, any way I can make more money and get more people knowing about my space sounds like something good to me, right? Finals story within the My Like section is Spotify for Artists has recommended 7 podcasts for musicians and the music industry alike. So if you want to listen to somebody other than me talk about the music industry, definitely take a look at. So we have The New Music Business with Ari Hersand. Ari Hersand is one of my like absolute favorite. Yes, he has the same name as me, so it's a little like kindred spirits, right? No, but I love him. Great resource. One of his articles about aggregation, and he has a comparison chart on aggregation, is one of my like favorite articles for indie musicians in the entire world. But he's awesome. Definitely go check that out. Music Industry Blueprint with Rick Barker. The business side of music, Behind the Music Business, Music is My Business, Best Advice, and collab sessions. So if you want links to any of those things, or if you want to do more like reading up on them before you decide to dive in, definitely take a look at that link that is in the link in my bio. The next section that we have is industry updates. This is usually the longest section, so buckle up. Spotify rival Deezer is now an officially publicly listed company. The music streaming service made its stock market debut in its home country, France, on the Euronext Paris. on July 5th. After combining its business with I2PO, a special purpose acquisition company based in France, the company's public listing comes 7 years after the plug was pulled on a previous attempt at doing so. Deezer becomes this year's latest music streaming service to become a publicly listed company via a SPAC in New York. Okay. Next, we have when it launched in 2020 as a venture to small business venues crushed by the pandemic, Save Live claimed it had raised $75 million from investors like its primary backer, Beverly Hills-based investment firm Deepfield Asset Management. Now it appears the Los Angeles-based startup has raised a lot more dry powder than previously known, having landed a total of $134.5 million from investors, according to an amended regulatory filing with Securities and Exchange Commission on Friday. The company secured that funding from 9 different investors. Save Live is spearheaded Palooza Alternative Rock Festival and formerly led talent agency William Morris Endeavor's music division. The company was founded with the goal of purchasing majority stakes in dozens of struggling music clubs across the U.S. and helping them weather the pandemic. The next story we have, 2 weeks ago, African music service Mundudo, which listed on the Danish Stock Exchange in September of 2020, announced a new licensing deal with Universal Music Group. At the time, Mundudo reported to have 17 million active monthly users across Africa, which means that the service added 10 million since February of 2021. Mundudo has now issued a new update to its MAU number, revealing that its service had 20.3 million active users in June of 2022, which is a 74% increase versus June of 2021. All right. Next, we have MBW, which is Music Business Worldwide's own forecast based on data released by the RIAA, suggests that the recorded music market for Latin artists in the U.S. is on course to generate over $1 billion in revenue across the 12 months of 2022. Okay, next, this is actually one of my favorite stories. I'm very excited about it because it's something that I enjoy talking about. When SoundCloud launched its artist-friendly, fan-powered royalty system last year, the model was only available for independent artists and artists subscribed to the streamer paid tiers. Now, SoundCloud has inked its first major label partnership with Warner Music Group, whose artists can now earn fan-powered royalties on the platform too. So, we got a story about Deezer earlier. This is the streaming service or the DSP that I utilize the most when we're talking about fan-powered royalties or user-centric royalties. Essentially what this means, Spotify, right? We have Spotify and we have Deezer. So Spotify takes all of everybody's money that they get from your prescription, put it in one big pot, and then they divvy it out depending on the number of streams you have, right? So at the end of the day, whoever has the most streams is getting the most money from Spotify. Then you have someone like Deezer or SoundCloud who has a user-centric model where each subscription, so we'll use me an example. I have a subscription. The person that I listen to the most is Kanye West, right? Then we also have Kid Cudi on there. We'll put Solange. We'll put some other people, right? But it's like a pie chart, okay, of the people that I listen to and how often I do so. During the month, my subscription, instead of being put into a pot where it'll go to just everyone who is having music that's being streamed, now my $10 is being divvied up into the people that I listen to that month. So what this means is that artists have a far larger opportunity to profit off of these type of systems, because even if I have 5 streams, that's going to amount on Spotify to 0.000 times 5. If I'm on Deezer and I have 5 streams in that month, I know that I'm guaranteed at least $1 or so out of my listeners' subscription. So just opening up the door, to me, it's a much more fair practice to do it that way. But essentially what this story is all about is that with SoundCloud, this is the practice that they introduced, I believe a year ago, but it was only, it was not open to to majors and to people who are signed essentially. But now with the deal that was just made with Warner, now Warner's artists will be able to have an opening into this. So that was very long-winded, but just so that you guys understand the difference between I guess you would say traditional and user-centric models when it comes to streaming. Okay, the next story we have. Is it possible that old music is crowding new music out of the marketplace? Is new music suffering as a result? Today, we can definitively say that the answer is yes. Music streaming is a growth industry and it's continuing to do great. But according to a new music business study, the consumption of new music is shrinking. Instead, old music is dominating the new stuff. So this could be attributed to a lot of things. We could talk about sync. We could talk about nostalgia. But I think it's an interesting thing to talk about. And I think the biggest takeaway from it is to utilize these things like sync and nostalgia so that you create the feel of old music and get your stuff out into as many eyes as possible instead of just releasing onto dead ears. Because when we talk about the sheer number of music that's coming out, this makes sense, right? If there's older music that people already love and there's so much music that's coming out that's new stuff that nobody is hearing, it would the probability of it would make sense that older stuff that people already know is doing better. Let me read this. You really love explaining business stuff. I see that on your TikTok too. Yes, I do enjoy it. This is what I do. But yeah, so there's a couple of different reasons that we could delve into as to why old music may be doing better. But I would rather talk about how we can change that, and how, as new artists and new music is coming out, how we can kind of combat these changes. But then there's another side of the coin where it's for the estates and the folks who have made this older music, it's good for them that they are still kicking and that they're doing well. Especially if we want to talk about the Kate Bush thing is, I think, the best example of just old music doing really well because it's good music, because it was in the right place at the right time, because of social media and trends and things like that. But I think that using those strategies that are being used on older music on newer music is the way to go, right? Okay. The last story within this section, 2 million members of the U.S. digital music distribution platform DistroKid can have their credits added to a global database of Jaxsta after the two companies inked a data partnership agreement on Tuesday, which was July 19th. With the new alliance with Jaxsta, DistroKid's members will be able to claim and customize their Jaxsta profiles and use them as their resume for career opportunities, the company said. So this is cool. This is just talking about the best way to describe it is, why can't I think of this word? Oh, Lord. This is terrible. Essentially, this will be used to scour the internet for who's using your stuff, and collecting that data and giving it back to yourself, and then being able to just kind of have a report on all of this stuff. So a good way is just to think about your statistics and your Shazams and stuff like that. There is such a better way to phrase that's not coming to my brain right now. Yeah, you just don't. I do have hair. I've been traveling, so it's up. My hair used to look like this though, many months ago. All right, we are coming closely to the end of this. The next session that we're going in is Web 3, and there's only one story in this. So Kingship is a digital supergroup assigned to 10:22 p.m. with an initial 5,000 access-enabled keycards minted as NFTs. The keycards allow collectors to access the group's virtual world as well as unlock products, experiences, and a token-gated community. The minting took place back in July 14th and sold out within 2 hours after its release on July 15th. Super interesting. I love keeping up with this stuff. And if it doesn't sound cool to you, I think something's wrong. I think stuff like this sounds super cool, but it also, if it doesn't put ka-ching in your brain in terms of what the possibilities are in the metaverse and within Web3, I don't know what to tell you. You should have someone on your team who's interested in it if you're not, because there's a lot of opportunity within these realms now, but definitely within the next 5 years. Astronomical what is going to happen within these spaces. Okay, next we're moving into deals, acquisitions, and partnerships. So Lord. Sony Music Entertainment, Middle East and Egypt-based Craft Media have entered into an exclusive partnership to sign, produce, and promote Arabic artists and music across the Middle East. Next, we have Mosaic, the newly launched payment platform, custom built for the creative economy, is announcing its first creator partner, producer, Drummer Boy. The music business is 10% talent, 90% business. Absolutely true. This is a quote from Drummer Boy. Mosaic makes the 90% faster. I can work with any artist on any distribution platform I know. Get the splits and the recoupables are taken care of. It makes everything easier for making payouts as well as album and mechanical royalty splits. I think this is super cool. This is something I gotta check out more because it that's a lot of my job is like streamlining these things. So if there's a way to make that easier, I would love to do that. Definitely if you work on like the publishing side, if you work just on like the business management opposed to the artist management side, it's definitely something I would look into as a resource. But overall, really cool. There's a lot of new bank wave type things like this coming out. Definitely important to do your research on it. But resources that make life easier are never a bad thing, right? Next story that we have, fast rising R&B singer Brent Faiyaz, whose debut full-length album Wasteland debuted at #1 on Billboard's Hot Hip Hop and R&B charts, and #2 on the Billboard Top 200, has renewed his global publishing deal with Pulse Music Group. Faiyaz initially signed to the company in 2016. We got the last section, y'all. This was a quick episode, and I'm very happy about it, but we're going to move into 2 artist accomplishments. K. Michelle's latest single, Such, has peaked out #1 on the R&B radio. It is singer-songwriter's first chart topper on this radio format. Her previous best was The Rain, which is a top 10 hit. And finally, this week, the Coast Contra-assisted bop Jump from Sierra enters #4 on Billboard's R&B digital song sales chart. Elsewhere, the High Octane Summer Anthem debuts on #12 on Billboard's Hip Hop R&B digital song sales chart. All right, you guys, that's it for today. Pretty simple and short episode, but I'm very tired. I've been traveling for like a week, and I'm glad I could get this out to you and just keep up with some type of schedule. But on that note, stay safe. Let me know if you have any questions about the music industry. If you want to submit to next week, you can just send me a link to your Spotify or your YouTube, a song preferably, please. And I'll review it next week, and we'll have some fun. If you have any stories that you specifically want me to talk about, definitely send them my way. But other than that, have a good night, you guys. Have you ever thought about doing a podcast? This is technically a podcast. I just don't bounce the audio to DSPs. I'm waiting until I get a little bit more of an audience before I up production quality. But yeah, this is the small child of a podcast that I currently have. But on that note, I'm going to actually say goodbye. Adios. I'm going to say goodbye to YouTube. Peace. All right.